And good morning, everybody. We're live. Congratulations. You made it through the week. Another amazing week of food safety, food quality, putting food on the tables of the families across the world and doing it so that they trust it and know that it's safe. And a lot of times at work, no one notices. No one even cares. They just think it automatically happens. But Tim and I, we know that's not the case. We know that you're out there putting in those hours and getting it done. And if no one else says thank you on this Friday, Tim and I say thank you. We appreciate all that you do to keep our food safe. If you're new to the chat, welcome. Pull up a chair every Friday at this time at 8 a.m. Mountain Time, 10 a.m. Eastern. We live stream on LinkedIn and YouTube, and we bring you all things food safety and food safety related. And what you'll notice with our conversation, not a lecture, this is meant to share information. And that includes this community of people that we built here, which is amazing. Of which one of our biggest contributors is a gentleman here who is with us today, the VP of Sales and Marketing with Pure BioScience, Tim Steffensmeier. How are you today, sir?
I'm fantastic, Brian. How are you doing?
Doing well. And so we almost didn't go live on time because we were having such a good conversation here, talking about all kinds of what we're doing this weekend and all of this kind of stuff. And this is kind of what's cool about LinkedIn and the communities that we're able to build here. Tim and I, even though you may think it, we've never met in person, not yet.
Wild. Anyway. That's wild.
And so we got Corey here. Good. Got the team coming in. Sean, nice to see you. Belmont, is that Belmont, Wisconsin? What Belmont is that? So it's good that everybody knows the routine here. I love that, right? Life is built around routine. And once you integrate this in, this will be part of yours too. Part of what we do here on the chat is we put in here where you're at in the world. I am in Loveland, Colorado, where it's going to be a beautiful day today, Tim. 70 degrees, sunny, nice fall day. My maple trees out front are a beautiful red. Very nice. How about you?
Nice. I love that. Love that. Well, I'm here by Nashville, Tennessee, my home for the last 2 years, and grew up in the Midwest and decided to come south.
And so you've had at least, 2 under your belt now, or at least one of the winters in Tennessee. How's that compare to Minnesota?
Well, the first year we moved down here, we got accused because it was the worst winter, if that's what you want to call it, in 20 years. So we brought that with us from Minnesota. But no, that we love it. It's we used to get maybe 6 months of good weather back in Wisconsin and Minnesota, and now we get maybe 2 months of quote unquote winter here in Tennessee. Just enough snow to keep all of us a little bit happy. My daughter would like a little bit more snow, but hey, you know what? We're loving the weather. You get on your back deck, you can hang out for 10 months of the year, turn the heat on for the next 2 months, and you're got 12 out of your year you can hang out.
Vaughn is here. Nice to see you as well. So if everybody did or did not notice, you'll may notice, and this is really hard to do, guys. If you haven't done this, trying to point to stuff is backwards, and so you always screw it up. So up here at the top on my banner, you'll notice Culture Advisory Group, my new sponsor. So I'm working with Culture Advisory Group. They're based in the Toronto area, up in Canada, do a lot of business up there. Paul Valder is the CEO. If you do anything in the food industry in Canada and the US, you know who Paul is. He built the gluten standard, all these type of things. He's an amazing dude, and I'm really happy to be associated with them, and more to come on that later. I'll put their link in here too as well. Check out their site. So really they kind of focus in their main areas, Tim, that they work on is advising, consulting, and of course, risk assessment, which we were talking about before we got on here, is really, people are really starting to understand why risk assessment is something that you need to be doing in addition to auditing, and they're getting it. It's kind of that messaging that Frank Giannis has around culture, and people have been trying to figure it out, but we'll digress. That's not our topic here for today. They work a lot with government funding within our space. Software, they got some really cool partners, software products out there. So just a cool bunch of dudes up there. So
I love the fact that I think the industry is starting to recognize that there's auditing and there's risk assessments, and they're not the same. You can't just do one and assume that you've got both covered. So again, to your point, we're digressing off the topic, but we could talk about that. That's a whole nother show, Brian. You could do some time with somebody.
Yeah, just a little note to get people thinking about it. Audits always take place at the plants. No one ever goes and talks to corporate to find out how food safety is managed at corporate. And food safety is more than a department. It's how you need to be running your company. But with that, gets to our topic for today. But First, guys, a drink of our favorite beverage. Join Tim and I, please.
Cheers.
Cheers. Very nice. Nice coffee there. Of course, I know you're dreading this. I can see it on your face. Dad joke. The
Here
dad
we
joke. So it's October, so I'm thinking about Halloween. By the way, the end of the month is 5-year anniversary coming up for Food Safety Chat.
Yes.
Working on having a special guest on for Halloween for that chat. So we'll see if that works out. He's a busy dude, so hopefully it does.
Spooky.
So Tim, why do skeletons never fight each other?
I just got boy, they could be answered so many different ways.
They don't have the guts.
There you go.
Yeah, that one's rated age 5 on that one. 5 and above.
I'm surprised I didn't get that. That's where my brain lives most of the time.
And that's where we need to be, right? Being an effective communicator, right? What they say, 10th grade is where you should be focusing on that. And
I think these days it's more like 3rd grade, honestly, it seems like, but yeah.
Absolutely. So as we were getting ready for the chat, and so part of what we do on the chat, and we hear this all the time, and if you're a regular here on the show, you get this, is that we talk about technical skills, the important things that we need to understand, the products at Pure, how they interact, what the silver ions do, chelation, all these type of things, water hardness, all that technical skills that we have. And that's great, but the people side is important as well.
Mm-hmm.
And one of those rules that I found out, and I think we've all gone through this, Tim, is you don't work for a company, you work for a boss. And what do I mean by that? That means if you have a great boss, they can shield you from a mediocre company. They will help you, they will grow you, they will keep all the crap from the company away from you, and you'll have a good existence.
Yeah.
Conversely, you can work for a fantastic company, but if you got a crappy boss, it's not going to get any better. It doesn't matter.
No. Yeah, that's huge. I mean, if you think about it, your manager either makes or breaks your job, right? Makes you want to get up and go to work Monday morning, or it makes you dread going to work Monday morning. So you're absolutely right, Brian.
And it's one of the things. And so with this, guys, if you're looking at changing or looking at evaluating, definitely take some good notes today, because Tim's gonna have some good stuff to share here as well. Is that one of the things that you need to be doing if you're thinking about, and we'll talk about this more toward the end of the chat too, but I wanted to bring this up at the beginning, is when you're looking at a potential move or you're thinking about doing something different and you're going to be working for someone, don't forget, and we get kind of caught up this when you're in the world of work and you're working for a company, is you're so focused on the interview and putting forth a good impression and answering their questions. An important part of the interview process is you're interviewing them. You need to figure out, is this a company I want to work for? And that's something that I worked into my interview routine, is when I was looking at a candidate, and we'll go through my process here toward the end as well, is I would always save 10 minutes of that hour phone conversation when I was doing the initial screenings to say, okay, well, this is the point where I get to turn it around and you get to put the screws to me. You get to ask me anything you want. What would you like to know? And I will give you 100% my honest answer with those things. If there's bad stuff, every company has things we don't like. I will tell you, I will share all that with you. What would you like to know? And what I found out was people who were prepared could just start throwing questions at me.
Yep.
The ones who weren't, that also then became kind of a red flag.
Mm-hmm. No, that's great. It gives them the opportunity, shows what kind of leader you are, but then also you get to subconsciously, so to speak, right, let them explore what their preparedness level is or not, or do they look at your website and they know these things, and what questions are they asking, or are they asking questions? I like that a lot, Brian. That's great.
Yep. So there's certain things. Oh, and I'm very glad. Hi, Elizabeth. Good to see you here. I'm also glad that Jill is here. Jill Stuber's a regular here on the show with Tia, and Tia, of course, has a fantastic leadership course. Highly recommend checking that out. They do a really, really good job. So good job, Jill.
It's funny, Brian, if you look at the people that are jumping on this call today, any one of them or all of them could be sitting in this seat I'm at right now.
Oh yeah, we've got some high-powered leaders in the food industry that are joining us. I won't name any names, but Elizabeth has a good question here. When was the last time you had a conflict with the team? What did it look like? Ooh, that's a nice one. Um, Part of what Elizabeth is doing there as well, and this is something that I always do, is never ask closed-ended questions. Ask open-ended questions. Every organization has conflict. One of the good keys that I developed, I read in an article one time, Tim, was the 3 Fs: feel, felt, found. And so you use this technique when you're answering a question in these type of areas. Ms. Fernandez, I can understand how you would feel that way. Every team has conflict and things that you need to work through. That's just part of how things work. Here's how I felt about it, but da 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 da. And here's what I found as the resolution associated with that. And you bring that thing whole circle. You're showing that you have diplomatic skills. You're able to objectively step back and assess in this situation and provide a constructive bridge going forward with that party that you're working with. Huge. It doesn't, particulars don't matter, right? It's are you able to work through that?
Yeah, absolutely.
So, what are some of the traits, Tim, that if you're in that seat, and let's pretend that we're interviewing for a role, there's a job, and we're both going for that job. And what are some of those things that you're looking for in a good leader? So, talking with HR is nice and stuff like that, but the real conversation, you're sitting down with your potential boss. What are some of those things that you're looking for in that leader?
I think that could be a long list, right? Let's just be real. I mean, we could sit here and create and brainstorm the group as well. But for me, one of the first ones comes to my mind is trust, right? And trust is whether I'm hiring for my team or I'm looking to join another team, right? And work for a different manager, right? Where is that trust level? And honestly, you kind of called out yourself a little bit already and talked about how, here's 10 minutes if you're interviewing someone, right? Here's 10 minutes. I will tell you anything. I'll be honest. And when you give your answers, if they ask the right questions, right, they're going to learn very quickly you're someone they can trust, right? And for me, I'm going to flip it a little bit, I guess, on you, Bryan, right? But if I'm the interviewee, I'm going to realize, okay, I like this Bryan guy, right? He's not just giving me the canned corporate responses and towing the company line and all these other things. He's being very authentic and transparent, saying, hey, you know what? Look, every place has their problems. There is no perfect culture. There is no perfect company, no perfect manager, no perfect employee. And here's where we have challenges. But then again, you can flip it and say, look, here's what we're doing about those, or here's how we, handle these situations. And I think that's really important in the interview process, as well as a leader in general.
Right. And so part of that is you're on both sides of this equation, you're looking for cues. So for example, are you able to listen? Or are you just waiting to say the next thing?
What's that, Bryan? I'm sorry.
And you cut me off. And it's just like, right. Or if I'm interviewing with you, Tim, and you're the boss, and you keep talking about, I did this and I did that, and here's what I did in my department, and here's the objectives I put in place, and here's how I'm really, you're doing all that yourself. That's really amazing. And,
right.
And if I work for you, I can now see that I'm not part of the equation. It's about me, man. Right.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, and there's 3 other quick ones here, right? But I mean, do they take ownership, right? So, I expect myself to take ownership in my decisions, like my team as well, my managers as well, right? It's when not if, but when something happens, right? Whether you do something or don't do something, but how do you handle the response? Do you blame someone? Do you say, well, I would have, but, right, or I couldn't because, right? Make excuses, or we saying, look, you know what? I was responsible for that. I missed the mark on that. But then do you dwell and wallow in that? Or do you say, but here's what I'm doing now? Or, hey, you know what? I reevaluated and moving forward, I'm going to be doing this, right? I think that's another big one.
Yeah. Do you look at failures as an opportunity to grow or not? Or is it's not my fault? I could have done this, but so-and-so, that no good SOB. Part of this if you're sitting in the chair looking at a job, part of this is understanding that you, Tim, as the boss, you have a pain that you're trying to solve. You have an open role. There's a new division that's been purchased by the company. There's something going on. I'm sitting here for a reason. There was a promotion. Maybe you were promoted into the new role. Awesome. That's great, right? If you were promoted into this new position, I can learn from you. You can mentor me. You can teach and grow me. And it also shows that the company promotes from within.
Right.
I need to find out why I'm there. I need to find out what pain you have and how I solve that. And and as head of sales and marketing, that's your main, that's objective number one, is how can I help you? What pain do you have that I can help you fix? Right?
Well, you just, the perfect segue into my third one on the whole piece here is the why. And I put a little different spin on it, because I think that, sometimes we understand better why we're applying for a role we're applying for, but it's always good to dig, understand truly besides the job description, which those are so goofy half the time anyways, right? What does your manager expect of you? And that goes back to managing up, which we could do a whole other show on as well. But what drives me, Tim? Why do I want this role, right? So as a hiring manager, I want to know, what is their why, right? And for some people, it's to make as much money and enjoy life as much as I can. Others, it's to live life to the fullest and support my family and retirement. And others is, I just want to make a difference in this world, or whatever the case is. We need to know why we doing what we're doing, right? Why we want these roles, why we want to work for this team, not just at the company side of things, but the personal side. Because once we figure that out, once we know and identify that, have a reason to be there every day, we have a reason to do our best. We have a reason to become the best employee we can be, and the best teammate we can be. So I think that's really important. So I tend to go into the, hey, what's your why, right? And they can get as personal or not personal as they want, but it gets them thinking through the thought process and helps me kind of understand, again, where they're coming from sometimes.
Exactly. And one of the worst answers you can give in that scenario is, well, all right, Mr. Armentrout, why are you looking for a job? Well, I got laid off recently and man, I got some bills to pay.
Yeah.
Oh, that's
really, we all do, but let's talk more.
Why'd you get laid off? Right.
Well, that's a hard one, because these days now, there's so many people, jobs and companies, quite frankly, are doing mass layoffs, right? Or you have culture issues, which we'll get into here, I think, a little bit more this morning if time allows, right? Is, why would you leave a role? Why would you leave a company? Why would you whatever? And a layoff is one thing. I just left is another thing. And there can be a lot of gripes and complaining. Some are legitimate, some are not. And sometimes trying to sort through that is challenging.
Right. So you need to be prepared with your answers relative to that. And it used to be when old guys like me were younger looking at jobs, the rule was if you are in a job less than 5 years, you're a job hopper. Right? Red flag. That's really kind of changed now. To your point, with layoffs and change, lots of stuff going on. People are more lenient now on that. So you need to have answers as to, and those can be legitimate. It's like, the company was purchased by another company. My role was redundant, and and now I want to contribute in a new way. And I think I can bring a lot to the table. So you need to be ready for that, because it's coming. Right?
Yeah. Cortland has, I think, the best answer of all I've seen in a long time. I would totally hire him just from that side. Yeah. Cortland, you're a little old for that excuse. I'm sorry. Oh, you got to have fun, man. I love it.
Oh, Cortland.
But the last piece, Bryan, I want to look at is the balance piece, right? We talk about work-life balance in a leader. What do you want in a leader, right? So if I'm hiring someone, I want them to be a leader. They don't have to have a title as leader, but I want them to be a leader. I want my team to be leaders, and they're within the team and their industry and everything they do, right? And this is a little bit unique. Someone went through this a while back, and it really was an aha moment for me quite a few years ago, actually. How do they balance? So, a lot of times you have someone sit in the seat, like they talk about what a good worker they are, and they work so hard, and, they'll give everything to the company and everything else. Well, I hate the term work-life balance. I looked up in ChatGPT a while ago, and it talks about work-life integration, which I think is like a really fantastic way to describe it, in my opinion. I stole that, actually, because everything we do integrates, right? If we're having a bad time at family at home, guess what? We're going to bring that or some of that to our work. We just will, right? If we're having a bad time at work, guess what? We're going to bring some of that or all of it to our home, right? So how do you healthily, is that a word, healthily? It is now. How do you healthily integrate work and your outside of work life, your family life, right? And blend those two. I mean, there's times where your work has to be done, has to be top priority, has to be laser focus. And there's other times where that can become your driver, you workaholic, we call it, right, wherever you want to, and you neglect everything else in your life. And then that becomes a toxic environment for you to be in because you're doing the wrong thing. I mean, for example, I pour myself, as you know, Bryan, like you do, and everyone else in this call, we pour ourselves into our work. But how do we make sure we're not neglecting our family? And one of those ways I found, actually, and you guys have seen a post here and there about Ellie, my daughter, right? And she'll be drawing on my desk or my floor, and we'll be hanging if I'm working later at night. Last night at 10:30 last night, preparing for this morning, she comes, plops on the couch in my office, and we started going through kind of what I want to talk about today, right? And she had a blast doing that. But I was focusing on work, but I was involving her. And did it take longer? Sure, of course it did. But honestly, it made it more enjoyable. And it's one of those great words where I was able to integrate the work and life. And I know you can't do that every time and all the time. But as a manager, as a leader, do we allow for our team to focus on priorities outside of work that are important to them, right? And finding that balance or the integration where they intersect, I think, is so important.
Yeah, absolutely. And you remind, right? So one of the things, right, is leaders are always learning and growing, and so I always make sure I'm reading at least 1 or 2 books at any given time. And I'll go back to old books that I keep. So I have a rotation. I'll buy books, and if they're worthwhile, I'll keep them. If not, they go to Goodwill. And this is one of the books worth keeping. This is called The One Thing, and it's exactly what you're talking about here. So this is an older book, not super old, but it's by not good when the author doesn't have his name right away. So anyway, it's The One Thing. You can find this on Amazon. And it's to your point, Tim, is you have to focus. If what is the one thing, but this is in all those different areas. So what's the one thing in business? For me right now, if you're watching me, you know it's risk assessment. I focus on teaching people about risk assessment. It's that important. And to your point, am I spending more of my day, right? We only have so many hours working on this. Absolutely. And I'm doing that on purpose. Guess what? That means other things fall to the wayside. You have to be choiceful. There's only so many things you can do, but you also have to recognize that you have those personal things. Those still need to get done. I still have to get in the morning and buy groceries or whatever. But it can't stay that way forever. You have to then bring it back down and keep this thing going in a cycle. Super important. So this book kind of teaches that method of how do you evaluate for these different areas of your life, what your priorities are. What I used to tell my team members is, guys, I need to understand how many things you can do effectively. How many things can I put on your plate? If it's 5 things, I need to know that. If I try and move that to 10, all that means is 10 things are done poorly.
Yep. And Bryan, it probably depends on what those things are, right? I mean, it could be 1 sometimes, or it could be 15, right? It probably depends what that actually is. And that number changes from week to week or month to month, from project to project.
Yeah, and that's what's kind of cool about this space is there's lots of cliches here, right? And then cliches are in places for a reason. And one of those cliches that comes to mind for me is there's more than one path to the top of the mountain, right? You need to figure out from all of these different tools and these different things what's right for you and how it works in your world.
Yeah, for sure.
Elizabeth, yes. And I also think as a leader, you need to be ruthless in the priorities and not the flavor of the month. Yep. One of the habits I had when I was leading quality at White Wave. So, $3.5 billion company. I had 2 divisions. I had, 4 directors working for me, corporate staff of around 50, all the different plants, 17 plants, 40 co-mans. I didn't have time to bifurcate that work. And I would meet with my directors once a week in my office, and I had a giant white erase board installed, and I put graphic tape and I broke it all up. And we had our priorities for the quarter. And we would sit down and say, what are we doing this week for the priority? And then off they went. And that's an important part with being a good manager too, is to your point, Tim, I trusted my teams. They were awesome at what they did. And I did not, don't ever do this if you're a manager. Do not micromanage. Oh my God.
That's the worst.
That's one of the worst traits you can have as a manager.
Yeah, for sure. For sure.
Oh, geez. Trust your people. You are there to solve problems. And the farther you up in the organization, the bigger those problems are that you need to solve. Conversely, that also means that small problems need to be solved at the appropriate level. They don't all need to be kicked to you.
Right.
How else are
Amen.
they going to grow if they don't learn how to solve problems and fail? To your point earlier.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. Yeah, we're gonna chat a little bit more about that here in a moment, actually, because I think that's really important to process, understand, and execute effectively.
Yeah, and so one of those mantras that's out there: if you want to work for a good boss, you need to be a good boss too. Right? You need to learn that. It teaches you what to look for, and it teaches you what to look out for. One of those lessons out there, Tim, that's been accepted as gospel, that as we were preparing for this chat, we were really kicking this around, is during the reviews, you'll get this is, well, okay, Mr. Steffensmeier, you're good in these areas, but you really need to work on your weaknesses, which is this, this, and this. So I want to see action plans associated with that. You need to work on your weaknesses. Is that something that you agree with, or is that changing?
Well, if we go back to good bosses, right, and tie these two together, I had to go back to, I've been privileged, quite frankly, right, to have quite a few good managers to work for. And they've led by example. They've been tough, right? But they've been really good. They've been fair. They've been giving me the tools to succeed. And one of those was, well, I'll just shout out Darren Zaire, general manager at Commercial Food Sanitation. And I think that, not only did he teach me to be a good professional business person, but he taught me to be a good leader and what good culture looks like. Yeah. And one of the things that I love that he did one year, actually a couple of years with me, was what you just said. Instead of focusing on where I need to improve, and God knows there was plenty of those things we could, focus on for that year. But he said, look, Tim, let's not focus on this year, right? Or these years. Let's focus on what you're doing well, where your attributes lie, where your strengths lie. And let's bring those and let's crush them, right? Let's just take those to the whole next level. And it was amazing. And I heard that. I'm like, He's he kidding? Like, what's he talking about? Like, I have all these things, like, I can prepare to talk, like, yeah, I gotta get better at that. And oh my gosh, yeah, this is a gap worth fixing, and yada, yada, yada. But it's like, no, I don't even want to track that this year, right? I mean, you're doing well. Well, let's take these things you're doing good and really exponentially grow those. And Bryan, I can't tell you how much I grew that year professionally, right? And those things we just accelerated on a high level. You had the momentum is what he did, right? He saw there was momentum there. He saw there's something there. Let's take it and let's just push it further and nudge it, right? So, and you and I have talked about this before, right? So if you have someone who has some weaknesses and some, or sometimes they're perceived weaknesses as well, but let's just say they're real weaknesses, right? And you can sit there and try to pull it out of them, help them grow and force them, mentor them, coach them, etc. But that takes a lot of time, effort, and energy. And if they're not really disrupting the business, maybe we just let those lie, knowing that we all have weaknesses, right? And maybe we just hyper focus on, hey, how do you exponentially take this whole growth pattern to a new level?
Yeah, your job as the manager is to build a team. So the analogy that came to mind for me is a football team. All right, you've got the big 350, 400-pound guy. Where does he go? Is he the quarterback? No, he's on the line, right? Yeah. He's protecting the quarterback. Who's the quarterback? What's his skill set? The wide receiver. We recognize that in sports. There are people who are good and excel in certain roles, and a good coach puts them in that role. He doesn't come to the line guys and say, hey, we really need to work on your passing skills. You're really weak in passing. Well, of course he's weak in passing. Yep. He's not a passer.
Right? Let's hope he's weak in passing.
Yeah. And so with your team, you need to recognize that. And this is always something you need to be really, really careful for. And especially in what we do in technical fields is when you're screening and when you're hiring people tend to hire like, ooh, I like that guy. He's really technical and he understands the technical aspects. Well, now you end up with a team full of technical people and you all sit around talking about technical stuff and nothing ever gets done.
Yep.
You need a balance.
You got to have that balance.
And part of it as well is recognizing that, and this is something that introverts, I'm a huge introvert, like Elizabeth as well. And she had mentioned that on one of her posts, is that we listen first. And, the extroverts are the talkers and they're out there. Does that mean they know what to do? No, it doesn't.
No.
You need to, if you're the leader of that team and you see the introvert sitting back there going, you need to stop the conversation and say, hey, Tim, what you thinking? right?
Mm-hmm.
Well,
Mm-hmm.
I'm not quite sure on this yet, but here's my take on this. I can see this and this, but we need to do this. And everybody will go, oh, right.
Yeah.
And go ahead.
I was going to say, and half the time, that's the answer that you're looking for anyways, right? You get a guy like me who processes out loud and verbally, and I'm just spewing stuff that makes sense, but isn't always where we need to get to it. But my brain is still focusing, but I'm talking. You get a guy like Corey on my team. Sorry, Corey, pick anybody. But, when I'm done babbling for the 2 to 5 minutes, look at Corey. I'm like, so what should we do? Right. And he's like, oh, well, what if we did this? I'm like, dang, that makes sense. Right. But I mean, that's where, again, the strength of a team comes into place. It's very important.
Yeah, and that introvert may need a little digestion time. You may need to circle back to them in a day and poke your head in their cubicle or whatever and say, hey, Corey, did you have time to kind of think about yesterday?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I did. I wrote a big email for you. Here, let's kind of go through that.
Right.
And once they recognize that their opinion is valued and wants to be heard, then that contribution will come. But you need to accommodate that.
Mm-hmm. Thanks, Sean.
So part of this is the rule. Whenever you come into a company or a company changes or you're promoted or whatever, there is almost zero situations where you get to build the team from scratch. You inherit a team. So you're in a production facility and you're promoted to manager, or you come into a new company. There's already people there. And there's another book, The First 90 Days. And that first 90 days is super important, especially the farther up you get in the organization.
Yeah.
Is rule number one is don't make big changes in the first 90 days. Your job is to figure out what's going on, what's the lay of the land.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody hates this guy. Well, Tim, in my company, here's how we did it.
Oh my gosh.
I don't care. I don't care how is that valuable for here?
Mm-hmm. And that's what you just said right there, Bryan. So critical, right? We hire people knowing they have that knowledge.
Yeah.
From our company, we did it this way, right? Even Darren, again, I put him on a pedestal as like the best leader I've ever worked for, but I don't do everything the way Darren does it, right? I took those principles, the foundation he gave me, and I apply it as I need to at Pure BioScience as is appropriate, right? So yeah, when you have a leader who comes in and says, well, my last company, we did it this way. I'm going to really go away.
Yeah. Just because it comes from your old company doesn't make it right.
Mm-hmm. It does not. And if it was right there, even, which is sometimes questionable, but let's just pretend it was right there. It doesn't mean it's right today and in this position and in this company, right? And that's, I think, the biggest piece right there is, again, we hire people that have experiences. That's why you hire professionals. That's why you hire people who have a resume, if you will, right, of experience they've collected over the years. But you trust them, hopefully as a leader, to take those experiences appropriately and apply them the way they should.
Yep, like Jill is saying here, finding those strengths and weaknesses and building on those. So your job in that role then is to figure out who's good at what, who's in the right role, and if they're not in the right role, having conversations with them and saying, hey, I was thinking about making some switches here. What do you think? Does that hurt to ask for that type of feedback? No. Maybe there's a reason why they're in that particular role. You never know. Your job is to figure out when you're inheriting that team, why are they doing what they're doing, and what do they want to do? And that should always be part of your review process. A lot of reviews wait till the end of the year, huge mistake. So my process was I would have those weekly meetings to set the main priorities for the week with my leaders. Then every quarter I would have my performance review meetings with my teams. By the time the end of the year rolled around, no one was surprised by what I thought.
Yeah.
If you go into that review process and your team members are surprised by what you say, you failed as a manager. It's not their fault. It's your fault.
Yeah, I agree. And that's a horrible feeling for both you and them, quite frankly, both, right? Because you get to the end of the year and it's like, and I mean, come on, and you should know throughout the year, right, where they're struggling, right? And that's your job as a leader to help lift them up or help recourse correct, whatever the case is. And maybe just a tiny little turn versus a whole complete 180 at that point in time. You're not helping anybody. You're just hurting the company, but you're hurting yourself and your employee.
Yep. And this bears repeating and emphasizing because a lot of young people don't understand this. is HR is not there for you. HR is there for the company.
Yes. I did
Never
not get
forget
that early in my career. I'll tell you right now. But tell you what, you learn quickly that is the case.
Right.
No matter what they tell you.
Yeah. And don't get too bent out of shape by the review process itself. Companies have a process. They put it in for reasons that are not for you. They're put in for reasons that are for the company of figuring out fair compensation and all the things that the HR people have to worry about. And they have tough jobs. But your job in your department then is to manage within that framework and make sure that they get those skills and tools that they need. And you need to use HR. One of the things that a lot of people don't know is once you get to a certain level in the company, there's meetings that take place in large companies for HR. And you're smiling because you know where I'm going. Is we would have meetings at the senior level of who are the high potential employees within the company. That's outside of the review process. Who are the superstars? Who are the people that we need to nurture and grow into the next leaders? Succession planning. What is our succession planning? And in Whitewave, for example, every quarter when we would get together, we would bring one person for discussion, for each of the different departments, because a lot of times they don't know them, and especially within QA, tech services, sanitation, things like this, they don't see them. If you're in marketing, you don't necessarily see the QA people doing all this work. So that's the opportunity then to promote these people and say, no, this person is really good. And oh, by the way, they've also expressed interest in learning more about R&D. Right? Oh, hey, well, let's do some cross training with that to see how they develop. You may find a hidden talent in those areas, and
many times you do if you look for them.
Yeah, that's how promotions. And you see some people who go up really quickly in organizations. That's why. Is it fair? Scott Adams said, fairness is for children.
There you go.
Life is not fair.
That's right. Well, that's why we can, again, talk on this one forever too, which we won't today, but self-promotion appropriately done is so important, right? And then when you're a manager, how do you promote your team? Like you're talking, Bryan, right? How do you bring them to the senior level and say, hey, you know what? This is an employee, or these are my employees that are outperforming. Here's what I think they can do. And quite frankly, sometimes though, you promote them out of your department, which can be really tricky to not want to. You don't want to do that necessarily, but as a good leader, you're going to say, look, for the good of this employee, for the good of the company, for the good of XYZ, I need to say, you know what? They would be fantastic at XYZ role.
Yeah. And mature companies actually have rotating roles. If you're targeted as a high potential employee for leadership in the company at some point in the future, they will deliberately move you from department to department so you can learn. It's one of the lessons in technical fields that we have a hard time understanding is the farther up you go, the more general you become.
Yep.
You need wide and shallow, not deep. And we think, especially in quality and food safety, we think that, we'll get all these certifications, we'll take all these courses, and I'll be PCQI. Rah, rah, rah. Great. You have just boxed yourself into that role. You're absolutely perfectly suited for that role for the next 30 years. Is that what you want? Maybe you do. But if you get frustrated, that's why.
Yeah. And you might want that today, but 10, 15 years later, think about that, right? Are you going to want that then? And if not, to your point, you just pigeonhole yourself in that spot.
Yeah. And inherent in our conversation, hi, Ali, good to see you. And inherent in our conversation is you need to plan this. You need to think. You need to sit down with your boss and explain this. They can't read your mind. Here's my goals. Here's my ambitions. Here's where I see my career path going. What do you think? How can we get to these type of things? I am actively looking for that. I want people to come to me. This is another cliche, horse to water thing.
Yep.
Part of our job as leaders and managers is to find the top 10%. People who are challenged, the people who are pushing, the people who are learning. Because if I don't take care of them and help their careers, they're going to leave.
Yep.
And I'm going to be worse off for it.
Yeah. As Jill says, now, all caps, is the time to plan, right?
Yep.
It's not down the road. It's not next month. It's not next year. Start now. And you're probably later than you should have been already for starting now, but that's okay. You got to start sometime, right? But it's so important, and you got to take control of that.
And you should be thinking, who on my team is going to replace me? Oh,
yes, for sure. And not be afraid of that. that's the key piece too, right? So many times managers are afraid that job security, or afraid to promote someone verbally even, right? Or sing their praises or whatever. But to me, a healthy, you look at, okay, I'm a Green Bay Packer fan, just get that out there right now, right? And you look at the Packers, right, as I have followed them for many years. And for many years, they've had, like other sports teams, a really good depth in their bench, right? Meaning if a player gets injured, if a player, whatever reason's gone, or whatever the case is, that starter is gone, but they have someone to fill that role and keep going. And I think that as a successful coach in the sports world and successful manager in the business world, in order for us to be successful, we need to continue building our bench, to training our people. And that can mean simple as cross-training our employees in some cases, but in many cases, it's how do we prepare them for the next role, for the next level, for the next whatever it might be in their career. And I think that is a key indicator of a successful leader, is when we're doing that for our team and not seeing that as we're threatened by them, or that's another thing to do or work on and focus on. This is part of everyday life, guys. Here's how it works.
Yep. The thing that I am most proud of in my career are not the SQF scores or what I've accomplished, or whatever else. It's the people that I've helped move on to very senior levels in quality assurance, SVPs. There's one person who's now a very high position with an international company. I know that I can pick up the phone at any time and call them, and they'll say, "What do you need?" Right?
Yep.
Those relationships don't stop, right?
Mm-hmm.
Those are really, really important, and those are key. There's a company over the last 3 years, and some people on this call will know who I'm talking about, who I helped grow and nurture, and she's now leading quality within a company. And I'll talk with her every now and then and give her advice, and she's doing fantastic, and I'm so proud of her.
Don't you love that? And to your point, that's what you're most proud of, is what you've done with supporting those people, right? Because that's so important. And as a leader, right? As a boss, maybe not so much, right? But as a leader, that is your goal with your team.
Right. And that's why we called this chat leadership tools, not boss tools. This is leadership tools. And as we work toward, we'll bring this back to the food safety side of things, this amorphous thing called food safety culture. Food safety culture is not QA food safety, it's company. Yeah. How is the leader, are you going to promote this then outside? And then you can call on your team members to join you in that mission, to go out there into the jungle and teach these other organizations within your company what food safety is and how they help contribute to that.
Yeah, I love what you just said, how they help contribute to that, because that's what culture is, right? Is where everyone's playing their part, right? It's not just a CEO, not just a quality manager. It's everyone is contributing to that success or failure of the company. They can be food safety, it could be anything else. It doesn't matter, but it takes a team.
Yep, absolutely. So yeah, Cortland, guys, go through Cortland's comments here too. He's making some really good ones here as well too. In that, part of this is in the CEO role, and how do you? Yeah, that's a whole nother show, right? Oh, thank you, Ali. I appreciate it. So part of this is once your team sees that reciprocity, that relationship changes drastically. Once they get who you are, and you are consistent in who you are.
That's key. You're authentic and consistent, right? Two critical factors.
Then that trust and openness will come. One of the things I used to tell my directors and things is what needs to happen with our relationship is, if you have something that you need to bring to me, you need to know what I'm going to say before I say it. Right? It's like, all right, I'm gonna go to Bryan's office. I'm gonna tell him this problem with my solution, and he's going to say this.
That's good.
That's consistency. Leaders are consistent in every field.
And it's not always viewed as consistency, because you might have different answers. But to your point, getting in your boss's head, right, your manager's head, of knowing who they are, what makes them tick, how their thought process works, I think is so critical. It's also part of managing up, which again we could cover managing up for a long time.
Oh yeah. So yeah, Brett is helping us segue here toward the end of our conversation as well too, is sometimes you're in a position that's not going to work out, and having the ability to self-reflect and figure that out, key skill set is, okay, I need to look outside. That happened to me at my point in my past, early on in my career, was if I'm going to grow, I need to leave this organization. I don't have the correct opportunities of where I want to go. And those are hard decisions, and you need to weigh them and figure out the pros and cons. And those are step changes in your life, and you need to look at those really carefully.
Yeah, through my coaching, you know, I do on the side, I get this a lot. And one of the biggest ones is culture. I'll be honest, right? You know, too many companies these days, especially, and I think employees are demanding it more than they used to. I think we used to put up with more than we do today, right? Right or wrong. I think it's right that we don't, right? But if you look at a culture standpoint of a company, where is the company at? Where is the company going, right? You talked, Bryan, about how your manager can shield you from a lot, right? And when that manager is gone, what does that look like? Or if that manager would crack the tent, you know, open a little bit and peek inside, what does that look like there? Think about tying back to food safety, Peanut Corporation of America, right? Talk about a toxic culture. They were willing to allow people to get sick and die, right? So what do you do at that point? You're sending these emails to your manager, to your boss, everything else, saying, "Hey, this is a problem. It's a problem. It's a problem. It's a problem. It's a problem." At some point, you say, "Do I stay here or do I go?" Right? And I think those are things that, you know, from a culture standpoint, one brief example of hundreds we could look at. You know, so many people leave one company to the next because of toxic workplace culture.
Right. And companies change.
They do.
They get acquired. They downsize. A new CEO comes in, doesn't understand food, whatever. You need to be watching those signs and figuring this out, because again, HR not responsible for your career. And to Jill's point, you're responsible for you, and you need to figure out what's right for you and your family and all these things. To have that successful contribution, extremely important. Wow, God, the comments here, guys, are amazing. I want to pull them all up.
Let's take a moment, Bryan.
And recognize, everybody over here. Comments, right? You guys, we got some good leaders here in the group for sure. And thank you for sharing this information. So we talk about, you know, food safety is not a point of competition. Neither is this, right? Building people and teams. This is universal. And in the post on LinkedIn, getting ready for this, I'm like, I don't care if you work in this field. This applies universally. This applies to everyone, and you need to understand that. So sometimes too, as bosses, is sometimes you have a position where an employee is not a good fit, and worse, they shouldn't be working for you at all. There is the rare bad employee, and you can pick them out. They're there to take advantage. They're there for themselves. They will take every sick day. They will use every trick in the HR book. You name it. As soon as you find those people, you need to find a way to help them find alternate employment, because they are slowly poisoning your team.
Oh man, that is a hard one. I mean, I've lost sleep over having to terminate employees, to be honest. But at the same time, Bryan, I've been, I won't say happy to do it, but I've been, you know, it was my job. But at the same time, I was proud, we'll call it, to be able to do that, because what that meant is I was protecting the rest of my team, protecting their families, right? And that's what gets really hard is people say, "Well, don't you hate to fire people?" Yeah, I don't like to fire people. Are you kidding me? Like, no one likes the hatchet man. No one wants to do that. But at the same time, if that's what it takes to protect the rest of your team and your company, then I'll be the first person to say, how quickly can we get this done, right? And of course, I think as leaders, we got to take a step back too and say, well, it's not working well. Okay, then you need to go. That's not the answer, right? Is have I as a leader done everything I possibly can to help this situation, to prevent this from leading to a termination, right? I think that's really critical. I think sometimes we can be too quick to say, yeah, it's not working. I don't have time. You know, I got all these other things to work on. I'm going to just ignore. That's wrong. But once you've done that, exhausted all of that to a certain point, because you can take that too far and then take that and draw that way out as well. And at some point, when you know, it's time, right? And again, you protect the rest of your team.
Right. And your team is watching you. If you're quick on that trigger to fire people, they see that. They're like, ooh.
Right? And on the flip side, if you just drag your feet and they see this person getting away with everything, it sets a bad example. But the other part is when you're devoting that much time and attention to that one individual, the rest of your team, you brought up earlier, you have a certain amount of hours in a day, right? I mean, there may be 24 hours in a day, but you only have 24 hours in a day regardless. So if you're devoting the majority of your time to deal with this employee, you are really ignoring and doing injustice to the rest of your team at the same time.
Right. And so what you find through this process, so the employee who is a bad fit in a role is completely different. You'll find something new for them or whatever, or they'll see it themselves and they will leave themselves. The bad employee is like, nope, you got to, I'm going to make you dig me out of here. Right.
Right.
And what's funny is that and this has only happened a handful of times in my career, I've had to do this. I'm sure you too. Once it gets to that point, you sit down with them and say, hey, listen, we got to let you go. This isn't working. They'll go, yeah. I wasn't in a situation where they do, they get angry or think they know.
Right.
They know.
Right. Yeah. They should never be blindsided by that. Right. It should be obvious that this is coming. This isn't working. And they're not doing what they're supposed to be doing to make it work.
Yeah. And in particular, one employee who I identified who was doing that. So she reported to a manager under her, and she made my manager's life hell. So removing that burden from her was what I was focused on, because it was physically making her sick. It was such a difficult situation. And this is a situation where you absolutely have to work with HR.
Right.
Completely, and take all direction from HR on what path to follow.
Yeah, for sure. I love what Sean says. It can create a lot of dissension within your team if you allow it to fester, right? And that's so true. So true. You can create a toxic workplace culture inadvertently by allowing it to fester. Yep.
And union situations as well, Sean. But in some ways, unions are actually easier because the rules are there. Right? You go through the agreement and then you come to an outcome. So sometimes those are actually easier. We're a little short on time here, so we got to talk with this though. Is hiring, the hiring process itself, bringing it back up full circle to what we talked with at the beginning. And you need to bring on new team members in that process. So very quickly, right? You talk with HR and you describe what you want. Just don't rely on the job description. Talk with HR, make sure they understand. There's a screening process, right, Tim? You see it on LinkedIn. You'll look at a job, you're like, oh, that's kind of interesting. And you'll see that something's open and it'll say 100 plus have applied for this position. It's
right.
Like, we're just out there going, apply. And now we've got AI and online screening tools and all these type of things that are interfering with that as well too. Maybe good, maybe bad, but there's mechanisms in place to screen. And then it comes to you. Never forget, your resume is simply an introduction. Yes. Here's my credentials. Here's how I solve problems. Your goal is to get your foot in the door. Your resume is not going to get you a job. And part of it is, once you get to a certain level, director and above, don't recitate your tasks. I already know what you do if you're a director of QA or food safety. What did you do with that? That's what's going to get your foot in the door with me. And then we'll kind of go over the next phase after that. But how do you start that initial approach when you look at it?
Well, honestly, I'm a little bit unique here because we're a small company, right, at Pure BioScience. And I had the once in a lifetime opportunity to hire a team going back to like last fall timeframe when I hired Corey, right? And it was, I'm not gonna lie, it was one of the most fun experiences of my life, right? So I was able to bring in Corey, Morgan, and AJ. And what I did, honestly, Bryan, was I who do I know, right? But before I even say who do I know, it's, well, obviously, who do I know and trust? We talked about all those leadership traits at the beginning were critical to me, right? But then the other part was, what am I really trying to accomplish here, right? When I build my team, what am I trying to do? And so, Corey, I was able to work with him for a decade at Interlocks and Commercial Food Sanitation and see how he works and understand his professional and commercialism and his savvy that way, right? I knew I wanted him because he was the really solid business side of things. He understood, sanitation and food plants and things like that, which are really important as well. But he really excelled in this area. So I know I've got that locked down, right? And I know I need now a micro person because I can bridge the gap in both worlds, but I'm not an amazing expert in each world, I would say, right? So I knew I needed a micro person. LinkedIn, here we go, right? I heard of Morgan Young, right? Her name, and I followed her on LinkedIn a little bit. We connected and got to know each other more that way, more personally, in real life, we'll call it, right? And within a couple of years, Bryan, I hired her, right? She fills that role, the micro side. She can do the business side, and Corey can do this. But again, they really complement the football analogy: quarterbacks, running backs, wide receivers, etc. And then brought in AJ Bogan, right? Like it was phenomenal. I loved it because I needed a really good hands-on technical sanitation person that can really bring value in specific areas that can bridge all those other gaps as well. So that's how I did it in this case, right? Which again is kind of a once in a lifetime opportunity. But what I've done in the past and hasn't worked well is looking at resumes and asking the generic questions, right? So let's spin it on the negative side now, right? You can't always hire the Avengers, right? So when you can't do that, what do? And I still think you go back to, hey, Bryan, I got this role I'm looking to open up, right? Yeah. Do you know somebody? Here's specifically, here's the job description, but here's specifically what that role is going to fill. Here's specifically the culture fit I need, because Bryan, you know me, you know what kind of culture I want at my company, right? So talking to HR, they may or may not understand that, right? So to speak, or talking to a recruiter, they won't understand that. You might can tell them they don't know me, right? So I think those are really, really critical. You not only need the culture, but you need the qualification, and the qualification and culture, they have to go hand in hand.
Yeah. So, and this circles back to what we were talking about earlier. I need the technical skills. I need someone who gets microbiology and has that background. Yeah. And they need to not be a jerk. Because there's lots of people who have the technical knowledge, but do you want them out there interacting with your customers? No, right? And that's why we do all these interviews. And it goes back to that question of, is this someone I want to work with? Is this someone my customers want to work with? Are they going to be happy when they see them? Are they going to enjoy spending time with them and helping solve problems? All really important. One of the things I never do is I never ask boilerplate questions. Where do you see yourself in 5 years? Oh my God, really? No. The questions everybody is ready for. No, it doesn't tell you anything. It doesn't tell you. Don't do that.
Well, you can
go ahead.
You draw that out, as you said. We're not asking boilerplate questions. You understand where their vision is, where their career path is headed, where they might be a good fit down the road. But to your point, right? If you say, where do you see yourself in 5 years? You know what? I don't know where I see myself in 2 years, but here's what I've been interested in. Here's what I'm passionate about. Here's what I enjoy doing. Here's what I'm good at. And those, I think, are things that you can see very quickly what that looks like for the potential candidate.
Yep. Ask open-ended questions. And in my book, I have 4 different chapters and different sections in my book. I devote an entire section, as you can probably guess from this conversation, an entire section in my book, New Manager Mindset, on HR stuff and people and team building and leadership. And there's one question I'm gonna tease everybody. There's one question in that book that I always ask, and it's an amazing question to ask if you interview people.
I gotta read your book. I haven't read it. Full transparency. What? Shame on me.
Amazon, available paperback, hardback, and audio. You can. I had
no excuses. Take them all away. I like it.
You can listen to it in the car.
There we go.
Man, this went super, super fast. So we got to bring this back up to the 30,000 foot level, Tim. Oh man, the comments here are kick ass, everybody. Thank you. What do you want to leave everybody with, Tim? What you thinking?
Oh man, that's a great one. I think that what I would just say is really, when it comes to being a leader, right? Lead by example. That's the biggest piece. Your team is so important. They don't work for you as much as you work for them, right? How do you help them? How do you help them be successful? Their success is your success. I think that's one of the biggest keys I've learned as a leader too, right? So the more successful my team is, the more successful I am. And to me, that's really important.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'll kind of summarize it from my standpoint and say, if you want to work for a good boss, first you have to become a good boss yourself.
Love it.
You have to be able to recognize the skills and attributes, the positives and the negatives, the gives and the takes of what you need to do to build that team. And once you build a great team, they'll do anything for you, right? Yeah. If you go in there and ask, they're going to, yep, you got it, boss. And you know it's done. And you don't have to worry about it. And that's the best feeling in the world. Yeah, fantastic here.
I went to spend time going through these comments. These are some great ones coming in today, like usual. I love it.
Yeah. And like you said, managing up, maybe we'll save managing up for another conversation.
That is a good one. I deal with that a lot with my coaching clients, right? Is how do you manage up well? And I've learned that over the years. I'm not an expert. I wouldn't say necessarily at it, but there's a lot of tips and tricks. And if you can get that figured out, how to manage up, your job is so much easier and your boss's job is so much easier too. I love that one.
Not to mention your peers, because
Oh,
once you get
yeah,
to the VP director level, now you're dealing with other VPs
Right.
and directors, and you've got to have that skill set to bring them along on your journey. And conversely, you've got to help them on theirs.
yes,
Right?
yes.
That's
That's a whole new level you don't expect until you hit that.
Exactly. So with that, guys, thank you, everyone. Fantastic conversation. You guys and Tim, of course, make this what it is. I'm just here to kind of moderate it. So I appreciate everybody with this. And again, thank you to Culture Advisory Group. What a great bunch of guys there, and the leadership that they're doing within the food safety space. Absolutely amazing. So I'm super happy to be working with Paul and the team, and Brett. Brett's on the chat here as well. Reach out to them and get in contact with them. And if you're not connected with Tim or I on LinkedIn, why? You need to be connected with us.
Do it now.
Tim has amazing content out there. And so with that, guys, we'll bring our chat to a close. And of course, we'll see you back here next Friday at the same time, 8 a.m. Mountain Time, 10 a.m. Eastern on LinkedIn and YouTube, where we live stream at this time. And I get to bring an amazing expert on to have a conversation with you. But in the meantime, do that work balance thing. Get out and have a little bit of fun this weekend. Enjoy yourself. Pet your dog. Have him chase the squirrel. If you haven't seen that in my post with my dog chasing the chipmunk,
I love it.
Oh my God.
That's awesome.
He will sit below the post where I keep that and go, "Argh, argh, right, I want to play. Argh." Yorkies are so strong-willed. But anyway, I digress. Everybody have a great time. I'm going to go play with the dog, and we'll see you back here next week. Thanks, Tim. Appreciate
Thanks,
it.
Bryan.
Thanks, everyone.
Take care, everybody.